Visual Studio Live Share takes the pain out of collaborative coding. New York, decades after introducing IntelliSense, the code completion and information features that transformed Visual Studio into something more than just a text editor, Microsoft is introducing something that it claims is just as exciting: live sharing. Collaboration is critical for many developers. Having another pair of eyes look over a problematic bug can offer insight that's proving elusive. Tapping the knowledge of a seasoned veteran is an important source of training and education. Some developers advocate pair programming, a system of development where two people literally share a keyboard and take turns to drive, but most feel this is intrusive and inconvenient. Ad hoc huddles around a single screen are common but usually mean that one developer has to contend with the preferences of another, hindering their productivity. Screen sharing avoids the awkward seating, but also means that the sharer either has a loss of control if they give the other person keyboard and mouse access, or, if they don't, it prevents the other person from taking the initiative. Live Share is Microsoft's solution. It provides a shared editing experience within Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, currently only for JavaScript, TypeScript, and C#, that's similar to the shared editing found in word processors. Each person can see the other's cursor and text selections. Each person can make edits, but it goes further by enabling shared debugging too. A project can be launched under the debugger, and both people can see the call stack, examine in-scope variables, or even change values in the immediate window. Both sides can single-step the debugger to advance through a program. It provides rich collaboration while still allowing both developers to use the environment that they're comfortable and familiar with. If you prefer to use Visual Studio with your windows laid out just so, and still use the same key bindings as you learned for Visual C++ 6 back in the 90s, you can do so, and it doesn't matter that your peer is using Visual Studio Code on a Mac with Vim key bindings. With Live Share, you just send a sharing request to your colleague, and they can connect to your project, editor, and debugger from the comfort of their own environment. The feature will be released as a preview for Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio at some unspecified point in the future, using a combination of updates to the core programs and extensions to round out the functionality. Microsoft stresses that the preview is still at an early stage. Technically, it allows multi-way collaboration, not just pairs, though this may not be enabled initially. At some point it will allow direct connections between systems on the same network, but, initially, it may require sharing activity to bounce through a Microsoft server. Even at this early stage, however, it looks tremendously useful and like a huge step forward in collaboration and productivity. More immediately, today marks the general availability of Visual Studio App Center, formerly Mobile Center, Microsoft's one-stop shop for mobile application deployment and testing. Point App Center at your source repository, hosted on Microsoft's Visual Studio Team Services, VSTS, or GitHub, and it will fetch the code, set up build scripts, and run unit and integration tests. That's standard continuous integration stuff, but App Center goes further. It can run your application tests on real hardware, both iOS and Android, to span dozens of different screen size and operating system combinations. You can even see screenshots of the app running on the various different makes and models of handset. Once your application is passing its tests, App Center has a beta deployment system so that you can roll it out to beta testers. Need to make a quick fix to address a bug? If your app is written in JavaScript, you can use Code Push to send updated scripts to your users without needing to do a full build and reinstall. This works even for stable builds that have been submitted to their respective app stores. You can patch live applications, and we're told that Apple and Google will allow this as long as the patches aren't too radical. Even after a successful beta test, you'll probably want to collect crash and analytics data from your users to discover problems and better understand how they're using your application. App Center has tooling for that too. Microsoft's goal with App Center is to make it easy for developers to adopt best practices around building, testing, reporting, and so on. App Center is a one-stop shop that handles all of these for you. Under the covers, it uses VSTS. This means that if your needs grow beyond what App Center can do, for example, if you have server-side code that needs to have its builds, testing, and deployment synchronized with the client-side code, you can use the same workflows and capabilities in the full VSTS environment.